Hey guys, good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk. We are super glad you could join us today. I'm Edie,
And I'm Mary.
and we are here live at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. We're in our classroom studio,
Yes, we are.
and we are hitting on something very awesome today. Women's History Month. If you don't know, today, March the 1st, kicks off Women's History Month.
Right.
And I think Women's History Month, how it kind of came about, I think it's kind of interesting.
interesting.
It was like an evolving
Yes,
kind of thing. So we're
kind
gonna,
of snowballed.
yeah, exactly. So we're gonna start off with that. So I mean, it's been a month since 1987.
Right. Proclamated.
Right, but prior to that, it was based on a week-long celebration of women's contributions to culture, history, and society, organized by the school district of Sonoma,
In
California.
1978.
Yeah, and I thought it was so cool that school district
Right.
took that on and decided to make it, there were presentations at
Parades.
dozens of schools. There was
Essays.
a real woman essay contest. I mean, I just thought it was a really great
And
thing.
it just picked up from there.
Yeah, so obviously, it was inspirational that this community decided to focus on women and their
And
achievements.
contributions.
Yes, and so in 1980, then President Jimmy Carter, well, I guess it kind of had caught on and was kind of
Right.
spreading a little bit. And then in 1980, President Jimmy Carter signed a proclamation that it made the week of March 8th National Women's History Week.
Right. Just a week then.
Yeah, and then for the next several years, Congress would vote and have a
Right.
whole thing to make 1 week every year in the month of March, Women's History Week.
Right. In 81, they passed that resolution. And then in
Mhm.
87, they petitioned Congress to expand it to the entire month.
Yeah, there was a group called the National Women's History Project,
Hmm.
and they finally designated
Entire month.
the whole month
That's right.
to a focus. I mean, it's not like, shove it down your throat kind of thing. This is a time of recognition and focus
Right.
and just acknowledging the many, many women who have
Played a
just,
part.
played some bigger parts than others.
Mhm.
But I mean, so worth acknowledging women in history. And so from there, we're going to start talking about a few of the people who are generally recognized
Kind of
every
the-
year.
yeah, right. The Fab
Um,
Five time.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But as the month goes along, we're going to introduce you to other women who may or may not have been acknowledged during this month.
But maybe
Like-
we find inspiration.
Exactly. Women from Oklahoma, women from Stevens County or Duncan even, and just kind of do a focus like that.
Introduce you guys to some people you may not have heard of.
Yeah. So first of all, we're going to talk about Sacagawea. I grew up, her name was
I
Sacagawea.
was gonna say yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But Sacagawea, I think maybe is a better translation, perhaps, that they
Beautiful.
I know that painting
I know.
is lovely.
Her eyes are mesmerizing.
Yeah, of course, we don't have a way of knowing what she
Exactly.
actually looked like,
Mhm.
because if you remember your history, she came to be, the reason we even know about her is because she was with Lewis and Clark when they were exploring the Louisiana Purchase. Just,
Correct.
we're gonna check this out. The president just bought this massive land mass
President
here.
went and did a buy.
Yeah, and so we're gonna send Lewis and Clark out to see what there is to see.
What all he bought.
And so they hired a man, a French Canadian trapper, who had, of course, Sacagawea. When she was 12 years old, she was born to a Shoshone chief,
Mhm.
but when she was 12, she was kidnapped by this trapper.
Right.
And then he was hired to be a guide for Lewis and Clark in 1804.
Right.
And she was 16 years old, and so she went along with them.
As the interpreter.
Right, even though at that point, I would probably use the term loosely, she was married
Right.
to this trapper.
Right. She was, yeah.
The baby in the picture, she gave birth to this baby partway through
Their expedition.
yeah.
Journey.
Um,
Because it was what did it say? 8,000? Yeah, 8,000 miles.
yeah. So an arduous journey, especially for someone who was that pregnant
Oh, can you imagine?
and then delivering that baby and then continuing on
Right.
with that newborn.
At that
Ladies,
age.
ladies, we are not
Same.
as tough, right? So Cockawee gets all the applause.
Yes.
But she did something, and we know these events happened because, I believe it was.
Documented.
Yeah, was it,
Journals.
which one was it, Lewis or Clark?
Clark
Clark, okay.
had, yes. He's-
Meriwether Lewis and what's the Clark's name? William Clark, I believe. Anyway, he recorded in a journal in journal entries about, their daily adventures or whatever. And for instance, she knew plants, which ones would be good to eat,
Poisonous.
which ones were poisonous,
Right.
which ones could
Stay
be
away from.
used as medicine.
Mhm.
And so her knowledge of just the country, the land, all of that, it was
It's
botany.
valuable.
I mean, she knew botany before botany was like a subject.
She was
that
botany before botany was.
Yeah, yeah. A boat capsized in the Missouri River, as they were crossing into what is now Montana. And she got in the water and saved important books and much needed supplies.
Mhm.
Now, whether she was still with child or had that baby
Right.
strapped on her back when she did that, we don't know. But, when they needed horses, she convinced Shoshone tribe,
Mhm.
led by her long lost brother, and they can say long lost because she had been kidnapped as a
From that
child.
tribe. Right.
To give them some. She was so respected that they asked her to cast a boat on which they should build a fort when they reached the Pacific Ocean.
I know. And that's men that have well documented, history and what am I thinking of? Be like the way that they stood and people respected them.
Right, yes, exactly. They
Their
were,
notoriety.
yes.
Well known.
Yeah, but they recognized her and her skills and her contribution to what they were doing.
But they wouldn't have been there without her.
Yeah, so, and then on the way back, they took a different route. She took them through trails and helped their expedition find their way through probably wooded areas that might have seemed impossible to get through.
Right.
If you
Places
weren't
people wouldn't have
familiar.
normally gone through, they would have found an alternate route, but her
Yeah.
knowing kind of the landscape and the layout.
And think about it, I mean, she was gone from that area for 4 years
I know.
and still was able to
Still had to
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she had to have been such a bright, intelligent
Clark called her
young
her
woman.
pilot.
Yeah. She left the group and went to where Bismarck, South Dakota is before they went back into St. Louis, Missouri. She never received any pay. And then she died in 1812. Okay, so if she was
6 years,
16,
about 7 years. About
yes,
20.
see. Well, let's see, she was 16 in 04, 8 years, so she was 20 something, 20.
She was born around 1788. Is that what it says?
So 12 and 12, so she's about 24 years old. Which seems really young to
I
me,
know.
and so that means her baby was,
If that was the only one she had at that point. too.
Yeah.
She may have had other
her
children.
oldest was 8 years old.
Yes.
That
I can
makes me
imagine.
sad, but very, very much kind of an American hero, and think of all the way she helped that expedition.
Mhm. One
And,
of the famous expeditions of all time.
Right, and so I just love it that she's one of the people that we, that is a focus,
Right.
it just kind of nationwide,
right.
when this topic is
Discussed.
discussed, yeah. Harriet Tubman.
Here we go.
So, during our lesson this month, we
Mhm.
talk about Oklahoma history heroes, and I mentioned, civil rights activists because of a couple of women from Oklahoma that, we teach about.
Right.
And a couple of times I've had Harriet Tubman's name, when I just asked, do you know, and can you think of a civil rights activist, and Harriet Tubman's name comes up.
Mhm.
And I love that young children know her name and understand what a hero she was during the Civil War.
Right. What is this? Her name is associated with.
Yeah,
What-
yeah. So, I mean, we all immediately think, all right, this is what the way my mind goes. Harriet Tubman, Underground
That's where I
Railroad.
go.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And then us helping slaves escape,
Mhm.
you know, helping slaves to a free
Freedom.
land. So anyway, so we know that she was most active and lived during the Civil War years, which was 1861 to 1865. She was actually an enslaved woman, and prior to this, and she served as a spy
Mhm. Yeah. That's fine.
also
She
during
did.
the Civil War,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is super cool. I love stories about spies.
I know.
They're
know.
awesome.
She convinced a lot of them to
Yeah.
join her as well.
Yes, so she worked with the Union Army because she wanted freedom for all people who were forced into slavery. And she actually convinced other African Americans to
Mhm,
join her as in the spy realm.
Right. The spy game.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that this would be true of any spy. Being a spy, if you're caught, it's probably immediate death.
Oh, yes.
And
Treason,
for,
everything.
and for African Americans, enslaved people during the Civil War, trying to escape might be reason for you to be hanged. You know, fighting for the North, they might hang you if you were captured. But serving as a
Certain death.
spy, yeah, certain death. So, she had worked side by side with men, and she helped Colonel James Montgomery plan a raid to free enslaved people from plantations along the Combahee River in South Carolina. And I don't mean a couple of people, 750. Now, this is one incident
Right.
during these years.
Right.
But she gathered information from her scouts, the people she
And
had working as
Right.
spies with her, which makes it kind of sound like somehow she made contact with them while they were still enslaved.
I'm sure there was a network.
And they stayed enslaved so they could get
Get more-
information to her.
Get more people out.
Wow,
I'm sure.
that is so cool. I had not
There's a
thought about
network
that.
of, you know,
I-
people,
Yeah.
contacts and
Mhm.
so on and so forth.
So,
And like in there, he was a colonel. I mean,
right,
I mean,
a
he was
colonel
a
in the Union
ranking-
Army.
yeah, right.
Mhm. So I was on June 1st, 1863, 3 gunboats carrying several hundred male soldiers along with Harriet Tubman set out on their mission. And so she had found out where torpedoes,
Gunpowder.
and barrels filled with gunpowder is what they called the torpedoes, were in the water. So when the fog lifted, which, how cool would this scene? Imagine in your mind,
it's almost movie-like.
fog lifting
Mhm.
off of this river
You
in
see the
South
screenplay.
Carolina.
Fog lifts.
Yeah,
Intership.
yeah. And this boat comes in there, and they started this, some of the South's most important rice plantations evidently were along this river in this river bottom. And the expedition hit them. They set fire to buildings and destroyed bridges so they couldn't be used by the
You can't get out
Confederate
if there's
Army,
not a bridge.
and freed about 750 enslaved men, women, children, and babies, and did not lose one single soldier in the battle.
That's right.
I mean, how cool is that?
750 got out and not one injured.
Wow,
Or
just
Didn't die. They
yeah.
might have been injured.
yeah, I just think that is such a great story. And that was just one day in the Civil War in one location.
That was just one of the
Yeah.
plans or
Right, I love that so much. But so we honor Harriet Tubman today on National
That's right.
Women's History, the first day of National Women's History Month. Next, we have, this is Susan B. Anthony, and this is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These women fought for women's rights
Mhm,
and particularly the right to vote.
exactly.
Which isn't that just,
In the
I mean,
1800s.
yeah, if you stop and think about this, if women did not earn the right to vote until the it was the 19th Amendment,
1930, wasn't it?
19, let's see,
No.
1920.
1920.
Women earned the right to vote
Sorry,
in
didn't know that offhand.
1920. We have only been allowed to vote for
A little over
100
100
years.
years.
And women have been living on this continent for a long
As long as men,
time, y'all.
we do say so ourselves.
Yeah, so, Susan B. Anthony, which everyone knows, Susan B. Anthony dollar
Right.
coin that we have, I mean,
Flag.
yeah, she's well recognized and honored, her name. But she grew up a Quaker, and that religion teaches that everyone is equal. So this is just to help you understand the
The
foundation.
foundation for her thinking.
Her
beliefs.
worldview
Mhm.
is based on these teachings that she received. She knew it wasn't fair that she did not have a say in electing political officials and couldn't own property just because she was a woman. Now, women were allowed to own property before they were allowed to vote. Because even during the land run,
Right.
women could be property
Right.
owners. Women
Right.
could be in the land run by themselves. So that means that women were taxpayers,
Right. Give us your money, but you don't have a say.
but that's
where
taxation
you
without
start.
representation.
Where it's.
I believe that's what this country was founded on. We want representation. I'm getting fired up here.
He's getting on our box.
Uh-huh.
Back up, people.
Anyway, so as early as the 1850s, anybody who would listen to her, she
Stand and
was,
talk to.
yeah, she would stand and tell them
Hours.
why women should have the right to vote.
And the equal pay. I mean, she didn't figure out
Yes.
either that male teachers made more money than she did.
Yeah, exactly. They were doing the very same job. And
Mhm.
I mean, isn't that one a struggle? It's just starting, I think, to,
Kind of level out, maybe.
yeah, I don't know that it,
Ever will.
yeah, I don't know.
I-
I mean, I want to be optimistic. I want to think that it will, but it is a fact that it is not equal. And of course, before anybody gets all worked up, I understand that a lot of what they did is, what started, the feminism movement, National Organization of Women, and some of these, groups that, might, do things that some people that they disagree with, or they handle the women's movement in a way that's bigger and louder than some people want to have
More in your
put
face.
their way, right? And so let's just take this at face value.
Right.
What they have done is important.
But
And
them alone is all we're
right.
speaking
right, exactly. But
of.
but women having equal pay, I mean, I don't have to be a feminist to think that that is
Just
a
right.
good thing.
Right, exactly, exactly. You don't have to be, you don't have to
I
be
just
female to believe that.
Toss that one out there.
Even female. You can be
Exactly.
male to think.
That is true. All right, so they met each other in 1851. Elizabeth Cady Stanton they started a newspaper called The Revolution.
Mhm.
I like that name.
Mhm.
That's awesome, isn't it? And the next year they co-founded the National Woman Suffrage Association.
Yeah.
To focus on women's right to vote. She worked more than 50 years,
For
but
women's rights.
she died before the 19th Amendment was signed.
She died in 1906.
14 years before the 19th Amendment was signed. But a valiant and worthy battle.
Yes, for sure,
Yeah,
for sure.
I hope that she was encouraged when she passed away, that might come about.
Right.
You know, that she didn't
It
leave
wasn't all
this
for
earth,
nothing.
yeah, leave this earth feeling like her work was unfinished and might not ever.
Time spent worth nothing or,
Yeah, I wish I knew more about that. Maybe I'll see if I can find out something, but that'd be tough. It'd be tough. You devote your life to that and.
it's like going down swinging type thing.
Yeah, so here's a Women's Suffragist March in DC. It was March the 3rd, 1913, I believe. Which would be, what would that be, 110 years ago? Yeah, that's this one right here. 110 years ago on Friday.
Yeah, before, the day before Wilson's first inauguration.
And yeah, so this was back in when they still did the inaugurations in March. But I mean, we see right here, this is the Capitol building.
She's got her cape on.
So if this is the Capitol building, if I'm looking at this correctly, this is the Senate building over here on that side, I think north side. And this is, and this is Pennsylvania Avenue coming out from the Capitol. And we demand an amendment to the Constitution of the United States enfranchising the women of this country. And I mean, look at these ladies out there. Now this parade was met with some opposition.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I read that there were some men, well, not some, evidently a lot of men lined the streets and kind of crowded in.
Kind of see some over here on this side.
They even said that, I mean, I believe that some of the police were taken to task about it because they didn't protect the marchers. And
Kind of setback.
one comment was that the Boy Scouts did more than the police did that day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's.
So I didn't research that much. I only saw that in one source, but it was an account that someone gave about that day. So these women weren't just out freely marching. I mean, they were meeting opposition and they were continuing on with
Hard,
the fight.
fast, feet dug in.
1913, that's still 7 years before we had the right to vote. Okay, this next picture I really love. Women are lining up. This is from 1917. The original caption read, "Women suffragettes, women who want to vote, are enrolling their willingness to aid their country when hostilities broke out between Germany and the United States." This is World War I. They were signing up to do whatever they could do for their country, even though they still didn't have the right to vote.
Up here it says women's suffrage is coming in 1917. All political parties endorse it.
So they were feeling confident that women's suffrage was, it was getting closer. But I love pictures like this. I love the attire of the day.
I know she's got her stole here.
Yeah, I mean, her muff.
That's her muff.
Yeah,
They all have their hats.
Yeah.
And this lady's looking through the window.
Oh, she is. Look at that. I mean, anyway, I love this picture, but this is just more proof. Women, even when we didn't have all of the rights, we still felt like we were important citizens of this country and wanted to do what we could to support the country.
Volunteer your services for your country in case of need.
Yeah, what will you do? Enroll here.
So even though we weren't being spoken for, maybe they were still, we're here.
Yes,
We're here.
exactly. These are the officers of the Women's Association.
She's not quite sure about having her picture.
True. And this says
It is.
the delegation received from President.
This is
And
front
a
row.
memorial to the French women in which he advocates the federal women's suffrage.
Woodhart, Dr. Anna Howard Shaw, Miss Carrie Chapman Catt, Helen H. Gardner, and then Miss Rose Young, Mrs. George Bass, and Miss Ruth White.
So there you have it. I think it's interesting. The ones, well, some who are Mrs. use their husband's name, some who are Mrs. use their
How they
name.
chose to be named.
Yeah, which I don't know. I mean, it never bothered me to be Mrs. Kevin Stewart.
Right.
In certain instances, that's okay. I've never minded that. But these women were the officers. They are the face. They are the voice of the women's suffrage movement from that day.
And not NASA.
NAWSA, yeah. And this President Wilson was working to help these women.
Right. It was actually taken on the steps of the executive offices of the White House. That's where this
Mhm,
photograph was taken.
Yeah,
So
very cool.
well up there.
With the, I don't know if the US flag is in the back like that
On
on
purpose.
purpose, but how cool is that? You
Mhm.
can tell the wind is blowing. I
Mhm.
mean, did that photographer mean to catch that or? I don't know,
Just
but
happen chance.
what a great picture. Love it. These women stood up.
Hmm.
All right, and here we have, you guys might recognize her, Amelia Earhart.
Yes.
So another just
Pioneer. I mean,
pioneer, exactly. A
good night.
pioneer for women. She did a lot of,
life in general is just kind of a
well, that's true. That is very true.
storybook. I mean, kind of in a book.
Yeah, she you know, raised the bar for women to yeah, you can be a pilot, yeah, you can set
Yeah.
flying records,
Why not?
you know, exactly. So
Born in Kansas in 1897.
yeah, oh man. So she volunteered during World War I in Canada to help take care of the soldiers who were coming back from World War I. They would be shipped back to the Canada or the States, you know, whoever, and she would help take care of them. But there was there were pilots nearby, pilot practice fields. And that's where she started working odd jobs to pay for flying lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1923, she earned an international pilot's license, becoming one of only 16 women in the world to have one.
Only 16 in the world.
Yeah.
Not just the United States.
Yeah. Anyway, she became the first president of the 99s, an organization of female pilots. And the next year, no one ever would think of pilots as just men again. Yeah, that was 1931 when she did that. So in 32, she took off from Newfoundland, Canada, and 15 hours later landed in a cow pasture in Northern Ireland and became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean by herself.
Yep, solo.
By herself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the first accomplishment right
And
there.
of course, she didn't stop.
Right.
That.
Yeah. In 35, she was the first person
Male, female, human.
to fly solo from Honolulu, Hawaii to Oakland, California.
So coast to coast.
It says between 30 and 35, she set at least 5 women's speed and distance flying records. What, that's so amazing.
She had a busy 5 years
Yeah.
right there.
Now, we're all very familiar with the fact that when she was attempting to fly around the world, she and the man who was flying with her, Fred Noonan, disappeared. They were the total distance around the world, the trek they were taking, 29,000 miles. They only had 7,000 more to go. I didn't realize how close they were.
They took off on June 1st, 1937 from Florida and
Made it all the way to Papua New Guinea.
Mhm.
Shout out to our friends, the
Right.
Valleys, who are moving there.
Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea.
Just north of Australia.
Yeah, and they left on July 2nd, 1937 at 12:30
I'm
a.m.
there.
And they were going toward a Howland Island. I don't know, and they were never seen again.
It's just so strange. It's just so strange to me how people can
Just disappeared.
back then, not that it's any less or more strange, but now we have all these technology, all of these radar and tracking systems for people now to disappear like that. It's just like, how does that happen?
Yeah,
But back then, you can see with the
but you would
technology.
have
but
thought
you-
they would have found
Oh, I know.
wreckage. or
Because they
something.
sent out, Roosevelt sent out 66 aircrafts and 9 ships to look for them. Nothing found,
Yeah.
nothing.
And they'd made it that far.
Yes.
How far off course could they get?
I mean,
okay.
that's
here we
covering a
go.
lot of area though, with the 66 aircraft.
This is pretty much the dead of winter. In
Right.
Australia in July,
Yeah,
that's like the equivalent of
right,
January in the States.
right.
But I mean, I don't know, still,
I mean,
you
they
just,
would have just looked for a couple of weeks, or, I
Yeah.
mean, they would,
Yeah.
people are still looking. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Anyway, it is one of life's unsolved mysteries.
Yes. And I don't like them.
I don't either.
that show.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't
I
like
mean,
them seeing them.
this is one of those things
Alright.
we wanna know.
That's right, that's right.
Anyway, we hope that we have just whet your appetite enough that you'll spend some time every day, the month of March this year, thinking about women, thanking women,
For what we may or may not
Yeah.
have done.
teaching someone you know about a woman who is important in your life, who has changed your life, who has
Influence.
influenced you, someone who has made a difference.
Paved the way.
Right, a woman who mentored you. I mean, talk about women
And
and
birthed you. I mean,
right, thank your mama.
thank your mama. Pat her on the back.
Yeah, but just take some time this month and kind of think about women
Reflect on
in
that.
history.
Mhm.
Abigail Adams, who was the wife of John Adams, she wrote a letter to the Continental Congress. And she said, please remember the ladies.
There you go.
I mean, so this women understanding that we have been overlooked or not allowed
Not
to
accredited
be
to it.
able to participate at the level we could.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously that was in this,
Willing and able.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah, that's been a long time ago that Abigail Adams would have written that letter. So just to say that, it was a long time coming and how much I appreciate the day
Things
I
that are
live
done.
in
Right,
now,
right.
where I don't feel like those things of the path has already been cleared for us.
Right. The trees have been cut, the
Yeah.
shrubs been trimmed.
Yeah, and so here we are. Anyway, thanks to all those women and keep it up this month. We're gonna keep reminding you too. Tomorrow, Youth Art Month also starts today.
Mhm.
And we have this amazing exhibit here at the Heritage Center.
You
It'll be
guys
up
did
the
amazing
whole
job
month.
this year, all
Yes.
of these artists.
Thank you to the homeschool students, Walters, Elgin, Duncan, and Marlowe High Schools for participating. Also for, we have one entry from the Lawton
Art school.
Art
private
School of Arts and Sciences.
Mhm,
Anyway, I didn't want to leave anybody out. Thank you for your participation.
mhm. Amazing work.
Tomorrow, we're going to interview, and Fame.
Yes, fame.
Yes,
Yes.
because tomorrow we're going to interview a couple of students from Fame who brought their art pieces here. So you don't want to miss Trail Talk tomorrow afternoon. And then mark off some time on Friday because from 4:30 to 6:30 here at the Heritage Center, we are hosting a reception for all of the artists and their families. And then from 5:30 to 7:30, CTAC, which is
Chesapeake
downtown.
Arts Council.
Yes, they are also, they recognize Youth Art Month. They have a large amount of art there
Correct.
and they're having a reception from 5:30 to 7:30 on Friday night, March 3rd.
So Friday, spend time looking at youth art here and at CTAC.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be free and it'll be fun. Come and support some students. So anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy trails.